Well, good morning again, America, and this is Stuart Rhine and the Rhine Report. And today is a horrible day, but I'm still going to ask you to subscribe, hit the like button, do something positive, as we need to defeat the fake YouTube algorithm. Thank you. Today's discussion is a complicated one. It's also a scary one. In light of recent frightening events involving protests and arrests in California and other places against the Trump Gestapo ICE, mass arrests of immigrants by masked men in full battle gear, I am bound to report on the real-life consequences of this Nazi government's determination to call out the National Guard and other units of our military to quell what they call an invasion or rebellion. My question this morning is, did Governor Newsom agree to this as 2,000 troops have landed there in California? Absolutely nothing could be more preposterous, and nothing more proof of what I have been alerting you all to ever since 2017. I predicted that they would reach a point where, when the circumstances presented an opportunity for them to test case our constitutional provisions preventing the use of the military being used against our civilian population, they would do exactly that. And this is a harbinger of things to come when and if our universal population rises up against the fascist government installed by the combination of the Supreme Court and the moronic masses who voted it in. Clearly, so far they have used means other than the Insurrection Act, which I had predicted could be used, and martial law to effect a manner that permits the overcoming of posse comitatus restrictions. That too is in their playbook. Now, it is generally poorly reported, all of the issues of this fascist government, these Nazis standing back in the shadows, that already in June of 2020, thousands of National Guard troops from 11 states were deployed to Washington, D.C., as part of the Trump administration's response to largely peaceful protests following the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And at the time, there was a great deal of confusion and controversy over the legal authority under which these soldiers had been brought to D.C. And this brings us to the two sets of federal law provisions that are at the disposal of the president to invoke the use of military force against the civilian population. The first one is Section 502F of Title 32, a broad authority, but not an unlimited one. And I'm going to read from this because, aside from other considerations, it requires a governor's consent to employ such troops. The word response or request in 502 F2A is significant. The President or the Secretary of Defense may ask a governor to deploy the National Guard troops, but the governor is under no obligation to acquiesce. This reading is supported by 32 U.S.C. Section 328, which makes it clear that a governor is the party empowered to order National Guard troops to duty under either prong of 502F. A governor's right to refuse was evident in the summer of 2020. Now there's a second law, and this is the one being quoted by the media. Whether they're reporting accurately or not, I don't know. The key provisions of 10 USC 12406 are call-up authority. The president can call the National Guard into federal service under certain circumstances, including invasion, when the U.S. as commonwealths or possessions and commonwealths and possessions are invaded or are in danger of invasion. Rebellion, when there is a rebellion or danger of rebellion against the authority of the U.S. government. And lastly, law enforcement, when the president is unable to execute the laws of the United States with the regular forces. So, the president may call into federal service members and units of the National Guard of any state in such numbers as he considers necessary to repel the invasion, suppress the rebellion, or execute those laws or orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states, or in the case of the District of Columbia, through the commanding general of the National Guard of the District of Columbia. But as the Eighth Circuit explained in Bisonet versus Hague, and I quote, the use of military forces to seize civilians can expose civilian governments to the threat of military rule and the suspension of constitutional liberties. On a lesser scale, military enforcement of the civil law leaves the protection of vital Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights in the hands of persons who are not trained to uphold these rights. It may also chill the exercise of fundamental rights, such as the rights to speak freely and to vote, and create the atmosphere of fear and hostility which exists in territories occupied by enemy forces. It's a disaster. In summary, folks, we are under a severe totalitarian threat, living inside the nightmare of a Nazi-inspired takeover of American democracy. And it's going to worsen unless the people rise up, as Judge Michael J. Luttig has suggested, rather gently, but clearly. Most ordinary people are sleepwalking through this, and most pundits, with some notable exceptions, avoid discussing the elephant in the room. I can only inform and explain as best I can, and as clearly as I can, certain aspects of the horrors, and I wish you all learned something from the experience. Again, this is Stuart Ryan wishing you all a good day. Please subscribe, comment, criticize, analyze. I'm awake to that. Goodbye.